Hey guys, it's Kevin again, this Married for Humans, Season 1, Episode 2. Now, you guys are probably wondering how I watched it. The first, 3 episodes you can actually already watch because they were aired in the UK, so I just watched it, and, yeah, so I was really looking forward to this episode. I loved last week's premiere. I thought it was an amazing premiere, honestly. One of the best premieres I've seen in a while, definitely. It's up there with Mr. Robot for, best summer show, definitely. Top 3 best, by the way, guys, top 3 best summer shows, new ones, Unreal, Mr. Robot, and Humans. By far, those are the 3. Now, this episode was still great. Unfortunately, unlike last week, I'm not going to talk about the plots individually because everything's intertwining now. Actually, not unfortunately, but, unlike last week, I am going to talk about all the plots because pretty much everything's going to intertwine. We're finding out a lot more about the characters and about their storylines, and I'm pretty sure everything's going to intertwine, so I'm not going to talk about the storylines individually. Let's just get into this episode. A lot happened in this episode. There's a lot to talk about, and I can't wait for next week's episode after that cliffhanger. That was awesome. So I couldn't wait for this week's episode either because of the cliffhanger last week. We start with Laura. She wakes up in the night, and she can just tell something's wrong. She goes to check on Sophie, who's asleep in bed. So Anita took her in the last episode, yet Sophie's asleep in bed, and she notices some damn clothes on the floor. Sophie calls to her, and Laura asks if she wet the bed, and that's why she changed her PJs, and Sophie says she hasn't done that in years, and basically, I mean, that was just really strange, the way they set that up. I don't really know, if Anita, put in, the water or something, because she keeps having those flashbacks, of course, of, her and Sophie in, underwater or something, so I don't know what that is. So then we see Hob, who I was really interested in seeing what was going to go on with Hob, because he, of course, took Fred, and we find out why. He took Fred in his lab and tells an assistant that the AI is both the Mona Lisa and the atom bomb. So, as we know, Leo's synths that he has are much more powerful than the other synths we've seen. They're a lot more powerful. They have a lot more to them. They're not as, they actually are like humans, so... And Fred seems to be the most powerful of all of them. However, that might not be true after something we'll get to, but basically, he looks at Fred's memory fragments and finds one of a woman swimming that must be important, and it's Anita when she was Mia swimming with him. So I still don't know what this connection is with Mia/Anita, but that's going to be very interesting to find out. So the family chats at breakfast while Anita cooks and cleans. Joe tells Anita maybe she could do his job for him too, but she doesn't get it. And he's excited about the dinner she's making and heads off to work, and, you can see that he's just trying to tell her maybe lay low a little bit. Don't do everything that Laura does. Let Laura do something. She's just not understanding it, though. So, and then, that's just how she is. She's not understanding it. So, Laura notices wet shoes on the windowsill, stuffed with napkins, and she tells Mattie she's a ship mother. And I thought that was kind of interesting. So Max and Leo are still together out on the run and head out to look for the family. And Pete helps Jill to the toilet. She's got physical disabilities. They laugh and joke while she is, while she's going to the bathroom. And then he waxes his head getting more toilet paper. It's kind of a funny scene. She says he broke his head and will leave her stuck on, and will leave her stuck there. And she calls for Simon, of course, their synth. And Max then tells Leo maybe they're not meant to be a family. And I'm like, what does that mean? And basically, he says his creator designed him to be a certain way and he can't escape it. And Leo says he sees him as a brother, not a design that was made. And after a certain scene we see in tonight's episode, I am pretty sure that Leo is the creator of Max. I really am pretty sure of that. Not only that, but there's something else I'm thinking as well. But basically, Laura gets the hidden photo album out of her closet, and then she sees Anita lurking, and she shouts, and that's why she creeps around. And Anita says she was programmed to be quiet and not intrusive, and she asks why Anita washed her shoes, and she says she got them wet outside this morning, and Laura tells her she's watching her, and Anita's just sounding more and more suspicious here. She's not really sounding the most innocent. And she tells her she's watching her too, then says, you're right in front of me, but we're not really sure what she means, though. If she means something more, what's really going on there. I mean, again, we have to think, is she really there to replace Laura? the hints, honestly, if she's there to replace Laura, I would believe it, because the way she acts in this episode seems like she's there to replace Laura, and I'm not really sure if that's true. I do kind of have this theory that maybe these synths are there not just to be with humans, but eventually to replace them. I could kind of see that happening. It'd be a dark ending, but I honestly kind of think that's where we're going here, is that these synths are there to replace humans, honestly. I see that happening. So Leo tells Max this guy is a head cracker who can't realize what Max is. He tells Max to run if he tells him to. They pound the door in this really shady part of town, and he says he's looking for Silas for a mode for his AI. And they're allowed inside, and they see different AIs being tinkered with, and he says their boss brings them the broken ones. Leo chats up a guy and says he bailed out his buddy. He says he needs something for Salem and shows him a photo of Anita, Anita/Mia. And again, we don't know their connection. So Simon says he remembers that one and says he gave it to Salem. He says to give Salem something for him, then strikes Leo, who puts a knife to his neck and says to tell him what he did with the synth. He says they had some fun with her. Then he sold her to the company who wiped her and gave her a new personality. So now we know what happened to Anita, basically. That basically she was, tampered with, and they sold her and then wiped her, and now she has this new personality. Now, I'm still thinking that maybe she doesn't have a new personality. I kind of feel like maybe her original personality as Mia is still intact, and Anita is still Mia, which I think is really interesting if that's what's going on there. And the way they're doing that, I definitely really like. So the guy gets the drop on Leo and beats him up. It's pretty insane. Max doesn't step in for a while, then takes down the guys. And again, we know that Max is a lot more advanced than Leo, as is Fred. And again, I just feel like Leo created him, and Leo tells him to run, and he does. And he gets away, also in a distraction, but the bad guys give chase. And now, what does this whole Mia thing have to do with her wanting Sophie? I still don't really know where that ties into it, but I definitely feel like she still has that Mia personality intact. So then we see Leo pushes a stack of synths down to block the stairs and sees he's stuck on a balcony. He jumps and Max catches him. The bad guys are watching them get away, and then George and Odie hear the doorbell ring. And George tells Odie to hide out in the shed, and the worst thing that George could have thought of happens in this episode. And basically, it's that girl from social services. She's there, and he tells her he recycled Odie, and she brings in... Now, of course, that's what she told him to do. She says, you gotta recycle Odie, and we'll get you a new synth. Of course, he didn't, but he doesn't want her to know that, so probably just because she's bugging him so much and is driving him insane, so we basically had no choice but to tell her that. And she brings in forms for him to sign, and Vera starts to open the drapes and clean, and George says she's there to do what she's told, and that's all. And basically that is the new synth is this girl Vera, who there definitely is something off with her. I don't know what it is, but Vera, I don't trust her. I really don't, because she spots mold and says could cause bronchitis. He asks how she knows it, and she says the contract lets her access the records. So that's kind of strange that happens. So Odie's at the window, and George fakes an instant to draw her attention from the window, and he definitely, he wants Odie to be okay. He still wants Odie as his synth, so he's trying to do whatever he can to distract her. So at school, Mattie and a buddy... This was really interesting. I really like how much more Mattie is getting on the plot, because her whole thing with her not wanting to, go be a doctor and things like that and doing badly at school, I thought that was really interesting. So I like in this episode that Mattie had a much more expanded role, and I actually think that's really great they're doing that with her. So Mattie and a buddy try and hack a synth to make it act out, but then the alarm goes off, they run off, panic, it doesn't work, and you can tell that Mattie does not like synths. She wants nothing to do with them, and they just don't want him there. So Peter leaves for work annoyed with his synth Simon, and Laura gets a call about Maddie's school activities, and the principal says that Mattie has brilliant grades and asks if she has trouble with synths, and Mattie says they're making human existence pointless, which I honestly do agree with. I agree with Mattie saying there. I mean, think of what, Anita/Mia is doing to Laura. Think about that. I mean, she's basically doing all the work. She's checking on Sophie. Sophie even thinks of, Anita as more of a mother than Laura is. So I really see her point there. And the principal says, modifying synths is illegal and dangerous, and Laura asks the woman if she has any proof and says without evidence, nothing will go further. She takes Mattie and leaves, and that's true. They don't have any, proof, but I feel like Maddie's going to keep doing this. Maddie definitely is going to get herself in trouble, and she tells Maddie to meet her after school to go shopping, and seems pleased by what Maddie has done. Because, of course, Laura just agrees with Maddie. I like that Laura agrees with her because, honestly, Maddie has some good points. And we know that Laura doesn't want Anita either. And basically, we see that her partner in crime, who I kind of feel like is going to be a love interest to her, I can already tell they're going to, have some sort of, thing going on there. I really like this guy overall. Her partner in crime tells her he's got no future, but she does and should do something with her life. I really liked how encouraging he was because, again, she doesn't really think she has much of a future. And I like that he's trying to help her as best as he could. He says to be more careful, and she says next time she will get the hack, and I really like that scene. So they watch people use synths as golf caddies, and she thinks it's a huge waste of the tech, and she says she doesn't like her mom treating her like a problem to solve, and he says his dad hates him, and I thought that was really interesting. I definitely want to find out more about her friend. I definitely feel like there's more going on with him, and I really do like that plot, I have to say. So George works when Vera brings him some healthy, tasty food. He says he asked for a grilled cheese, and she says this meets his dietary requirements. He calls and says he wants to return his synth, and I'm just like, how does she know all of this? This is a bit extensive what she's doing. I mean, she's doing way too much, and I understand, she wants to help him and things like that, but I definitely feel like she is doing way too much, and definitely more than a synth should do. Honestly, she is. So, basically, I thought that was definitely very interesting that we saw that. So, the customer service person says unless there's a fault, he can't return or replace it. He realizes he's speaking to a synth, which is very strange, and he's annoyed by it. He ends the call, and Vera lurks nearby listening, and that was honestly pretty creepy, that scene with Vera. So, Mattie meets Laura. Now, I kind of feel like there are good synths and there are bad synths. There are synths that are good-natured, like Anita, well, I think they're good-natured, Odie, people like that, but then you have people like Vera who are bad synths, and basically, Mattie meets Laura after school, and she wants to know why why Mattie says to see if she could, and Laura says not to mess with Anita, and Mattie says Laura told her they'd never get one because it would make them lazy, then she let her dad get one, and I like what she said there, because, I mean, they didn't want a synth, they thought it wouldn't be good, and now all of a sudden they're just letting this synth into their family. I agree with Mattie again, I really do agree with that. Now, this was very interesting we found this out. We find out here that Vera and Peter are synth cops, and that I thought was definitely very interesting, because Vera gets a call and tells Peter that Silas K. Pack is back in business. She says she can't believe they let him out, and they go to follow up on the call, and they find Silas with a bunch of units, and Vera asks if he has any licenses for them all, and the guy basically starts sassing them, and this I just thought was really interesting. We found out that there are synth cops. I mean, that wasn't really something I thought would happen, but definitely I really enjoyed that. I thought definitely that was really interesting. Oh wait, not Vera, it's Karen. Karen, that's her name, basically. Karen gets a call and tells Peter that Silas K. Pack is back in business. She says she can't believe they let him out, and they go to follow up on the call. They find Silas with a bunch of units, and Kate asks if he has licenses for them all. The guy sasses them, and Pete slams him into a car. Kate tells other cops to round up the synths, and basically Kate asks Pete what's wrong with him, and he says synths are running up the world. She says it's humans that have always done her wrong, and she tells him she's going to drop him off home, and they leave, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. So, Max tries to wake up Leo, who's not doing well at all. He hauls Leo down an alley to take him for injury treatment, and Niska then lies in her bed when the buzzer rings, and the synths are taken for a disinfect. Niska has a bloodied lip. She's told she has a customer, and she screams in quiet anguish. Now, as we know, she, of course, is like a prostitute. She does all this stuff on her own. I thought that was really interesting. So at home, Laura sees Joe and Toby outside tooling with a bike, and they're laughing and having fun. And to me, that just seemed like she was thinking what her life could be like if Anita wasn't there. And of course, then Anita's watching them from another window, unseen by the family, and he takes them to a junkyard. And Leo then tells Max that they did something to Anita's head, and Max tells him to save his energy. So he knows that she's still out there and that there's something that happened to her. And they see flashlights, and Leo says they need to go now without their stuff they stashed there. They leave with Max supporting him, and it's Hob, the scientist, who's looking through their stuff. And that I was like, holy shit, now they're going to get their revenge on Hob. Because, of course, why this all started in the first place? Because Hob took Fred, and now they're going to get their revenge there. So Toby's in his room just relaxing, and Anita then comes in to clean, and he panics when she starts to pick up his underwear and grabs them up, and she leaves, and he closes the door embarrassed. And basically Joe and Laura are eating, and I'm just like, that's a little too much. Like, what Anita's doing, a little bit too much. And you can definitely tell that Toby doesn't like Synths either, definitely. So Joe and Laura are eating, and she keeps watching Anita doing chores. She asks what Anita's doing and goes to look, and she sees Anita with something in her hand, then screams when she sees she's holding a spider. And she says she found it on the wall and asks if she did it on purpose, and says she's scared of spiders. And Anita doesn't give an answer, so maybe she did, maybe she didn't, I'm not really sure. Laura goes off and tells Joe she doesn't trust it, but Joe says it's just a machine. And that's the thing, that Joe doesn't realize that this was a person that had their memory wiped, and they're more than just a machine. So she says the thing is watching her. Joe says she sounds crazy and asks what the hell is up. Vera tries to examine George to make sure he swallowed his medication. It's a really creepy stuff. She wants to check his ton. He takes the pill and says she's a jailer, not a caregiver. He says all stare would be sick if he saw what she has become. He tells her to get lost and calls her tugboat. She says a name change must be cleared with the local health authority, and I'm just like, shut the fuck up. You're so annoying. She tells him to sleep and says his GP will be notified of non-compliance. He says he helped create them, and she offers to soothe him by petting his head or making forest sound. He says he'll go to sleep and tells her goodnight. She shuts off the light and stares and then leaves. So definitely you can tell that she is being very overbearing, and I kind of feel like the person that was programmed by whoever programmed Anita also programmed Vera, definitely. And this person, I feel like they don't have very good intentions. Definitely they don't have very good intentions. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with that whole thing. So basically, Laura then watches Sophie sleeping again that night. She asks Joe if they love their children because they have to want to, and she asks if they're hardwired to love them. And Joe asks what that's from, and basically he says no, everyone loves their kids, so they choose. And he says whatever is going on with her, basically, that whatever is going on with her, has nothing to do with Anita. And she says to leave it. And I think that really is interesting what he said. She says the synths give her the creeps and she doesn't want them there anymore. And I think really it's just everything that Mattie said. I mean, honestly, I just think that this is making her not trust synths even more than she already didn't. So Anita knocks the door to give Laura her cell. She snatches it, slams the door in her face, and that was definitely pretty crazy when we saw that. Definitely. So she just wants nothing to do with her at that point. She doesn't want to see Anita. She's done with synths. She's sick of them. And I think definitely what Mattie said, that's really what made her think that. So George sneaks out to chat with Odie and tells him he's supposed to be hiding. He tells Odie to go into energy saving mode and puts a cloth over him, and Odie asks if it's a game. It's pretty sad, actually. I do really, as I said before, I really do feel bad for Odie. I mean, obviously, we know he's never going to get rid of Odie because, Odie is part of his family, and he's the only thing left is his wife, and he's like a son to him, really. He's known Odie as long as he can remember, pretty much, and he doesn't really want to get rid of him, so it was kind of sad to see that. But Vera then follows him outside, and I'm like, I don't know how the hell she did this. She says he shouldn't be outside at this hour, and George says he doesn't take orders from her. She puts her hands on him, and he says he didn't give her permission, which is true. I mean, how can she do that without his permission? And she forces him back into the house while he says this is not right, and I thought that was really interesting. There definitely is something wrong with her. I don't know if Vera was programmed differently, but definitely she is very different than the other synths. She's not like the very high up like Max and Fred are. She's not like them, but she isn't Anita either. She definitely knows what she's doing, and she's definitely there for bad intentions. I think she was definitely programmed by somebody else. So Anita sits in the kitchen when Toby comes down for a drink. He goes closer and sits by her, touches her hand. She tells him hello and asks if he's having trouble sleeping. She startles him and he says he thought she was hibernating, and she says she's charging and goes into energy saving mode. She asks if he needs help and he says to pretend he's not there, then sits back down beside her, and he tries to touch her, sexually, and Anita says that's inappropriate physical contact, must be reported to a primary user, in other words, Joe, and he starts to freak out, but she says since he didn't actually come into contact with her, nothing needs to be reported. He thanks her and asks why they had to make her, so fit, and I thought that was really interesting. So Niska is then told she has a customer. She puts on this nightgown, and the older man seems hesitant and nice. He asks to sit down, and then says he hasn't done anything like this before. He just seems like this really nice man. He says she's beautiful and asks if she's ever let out of this room, and she says she can initiate sexual contact if he prefers and confirms. He says yes, and she touches him. Then she asks if he wants to talk. He says he'd like something different. He says he wants to act scared and young, and she just flat out says no, like she's not doing that, and he asks what she means by no, and he says she will do what he says, and she belongs to him for the next hour, and she says she doesn't belong to anyone, because, she was captured, of course, and he asks who taught her to talk like that, and then gets rough. She says her father did, then chokes him, snapped his neck, and I'm like, who's her father? I'm like, what's that? What's she talking about? So she puts on a jacket, uses his handprint to open her door so she can leave. She walks out, the madam curses, gets a knife. Niska tells her that what her men do to them, they want to do to her too. And Niska rips open her neck, pulls out her chip, the madam faints, and Niska walks out pleased with herself, and Niska is a badass, honestly. That was awesome. I'm like, Niska, I didn't realize Niska would be as much of a badass as she is, but that scene was fucking awesome, I have to say. So Mattie gets a text from Harun, that guy, basically, that she was talking to. As she watches Anita take out the trash, a synth outside speaks to her. He asks, why don't you share? And Hob then tells Fiona that they need to work fast before Fred's people come for him. He suggests they try talking to the rogue synth, and definitely, I think that Niska's coming after them, definitely. I mean, they kidnapped her, they kidnapped Fred, and they kidnapped Anita, but there's no going after her because she's, with this family. So Max hauls Leo into a bathroom to try and give him some first aid. A man pounds on the door, and Max uses a wire to basically cauterize Leo's wound, and he uses electricity. Now, I don't know about this, but I'm personally thinking that Leo is also a synth. I mean, think about it. Why would he use a wire to help his wound? Definitely, I think Leo's a synth. He was the first synth, and I think he programmed all these other synths. Now, how he did this, I'm not really sure, but I really feel like that's what's going on here, that he programmed the other synths and that he is the first synth, which that was a very good reveal, and that makes me so much more interested in his character. I already loved his character, but that makes me so much more interested in his character. That was awesome. So Joe and Toby are riding bikes. Anita offers Laura breakfast, tells her they left to ride bikes, and Laura's just ignoring her. She doesn't want to listen to her. Mattie comes in and says that Anita's acting weird, and why doesn't she share data with another synth? And she says she doesn't understand the question. And Laura asks if she took Sophie outside, and she says no. Laura says she's lying, but Anita says she can't lie. It's against her programming. Laura gets upset with her. Anita says it rained that night and says maybe Sophie went outside. And Anita says she will always keep Sophie safe, and Laura asks what that means. And she's just freaking out. She goes to get Anita's documents. She wants to see what's going on with Anita, like why she's acting so weird. She calls customer service. She says there's a problem with her synth, and Anita hears Sophie calling for her. Anita goes upstairs and finds Sophie in bed crying. She says there's a wolf under her bed, and she tells her to cuddle, but Anita says she can't without permission, and Sophie says again cuddle, and Anita does. She says it was eating her, and Laura comes upstairs, finds Anita with Sophie, and again she has this flashback of these two in the water, and I really feel like she knew Sophie back when she was Mia. I don't really know how, but I definitely feel like there's something going on with that. So she tells Anita to get in the car. Sophie freaks out. She says she's her friend, but Laura says to say goodbye. And she at this point she wants to take Anita back. And Anita says if her mom says she's broken, she must be, because her mom wouldn't lie and she must be fixed. And Sophie cries, and then Mattie says she'll look after her. And Anita offers to drive, and that's where she's taking her. And Laura says back, and I love the way this episode ended. This was awesome because Anita asks exactly what she means by back, and she says, Anita basically stands by the car. She doesn't want to get in. She knows that she's going back, and she's not going to let that happen, and that's how the episode ends. So what an awesome episode, guys. Seriously, they revealed a lot in this episode, but they still kept a lot of things hidden, which I really do like. I mean, the show is not at all convoluted, and there's a lot to talk about. As I said, I definitely feel like Leo is the person that programmed, Anita, Max, a lot of these synths. I feel like he was the first synth, and he programmed all of them. Now, who created him, I really don't know. When Niska's talking about, like, her father, I really feel like she's talking about Leo. That personally is what I think, that, Leo created them, and basically he is their father. And when he said to Max that he is, when he said to Max that he's like a son to him, like a brother to him, I really feel like he's talking about, him creating him. I definitely feel like he created Max. So how he did this, I'm not really sure, but I definitely feel like that's what's going on here. I definitely also feel like Anita knows she still has Mia data in her. Like, she still remembers things. She knows her life is Mia, and I definitely feel like something's going on there, but that's definitely very interesting. I really like the storyline with Mattie, I have to say. I mean, Mattie and Harun, I really do like these two characters, but I definitely feel like they're going to try to stop these synths, which I think is really interesting. Let's talk about Vera, because Vera is significantly different and definitely more darker than any of the other synths we've seen, or any of the other synths they've encountered, and I'm really wondering, like, what is going on with Vera? Why is she so, like, why does she act the way she does with George? What's really going on with that? I'm very interested in seeing what's going on there. That whole storyline is very interesting, definitely. And he's never going to get rid of Odie, but I definitely feel like she knows that Odie's still there. And she's probably going to report it to people, and it's not going to involve for anyone. So I'm very interested in seeing what's going on with that whole storyline. Definitely that is going to be really interesting, I have to say. That's something I'm definitely interested in seeing. Now, Niska is definitely going after Fred. I can't wait to see Niska go after, Hob, and basically take him down and get Fred. That's going to be very interesting. Now, when they find Anita, I don't really know what's going to happen with that whole situation, because obviously Hob, I feel like they want to use, was Hob the one that reprogrammed her? I mean, if Hob took Mia, then he probably was the one that reprogrammed her, and I think that really is interesting that he did reprogram her. But I feel like if you reprogram a synth, they're just like a human. They do remember things, but they are kind of like a new person. I kind of feel like that's really what's going on there, but we'll have to see really what's going on with that whole situation. And also, is Laura really gonna be able to take back Anita? Because I'm not really sure how that whole situation is gonna work, but that's gonna be very interesting. But overall, guys, I absolutely love this episode. I'm loving this show. Seriously, the show is really delivering. I love the mystery of the show. Really, everything about the show is just great. It really is. I can't wait to see what happens in the next episode. Awesome, awesome episode. But that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. I will see you guys in my next video, which I can't wait for, and it will be for the Penny Dreadful season finale, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.